Hello movie nerds, and welcome back to Cinematic Sarcastic, podcast that talks all things movies, television. I'm Natalie, and I'm your host. On today's episode, we are going to wrap up my experiences at Fan Expo Denver. I had planned to split this kind of across 3 different videos because I had met quite a few celebrities at this year's expo. However, I've had a few requests to do a review on The Sound of Freedom, and then we have, Barbie and Oppenheimer coming out this weekend, as well as I did want to do a review on season 2 of Foundation. So I just don't think I can do all of those things and still kind of get the Fan Expo stuff out there in any kind of time frame that makes any sense. I feel like it's been quite a long time since Fan Expo Denver already, and I just want to get this out of the way. But before we jump into that, I just wanted to make a tiny little announcement and sort of a heartfelt thank you to everyone out there. Cinematic Sarcastic, the podcast, this podcast that you are listening to right now, has passed 100 subscribers. And you guys, I know that maybe does not sound like a very big number, but I am so excited and just so grateful to everyone that listens and enjoys this enough to subscribe. I am over the moon. When I saw that we reached over 100 subscribers, I pretty much just cried. I was so excited about it. It's been a year, of hard work, and I am just over the moon that you guys enjoy it, or that there are any people out there that enjoy it and listen and like it enough to subscribe. So thank you so much for joining this journey with me and just kind of letting me share my opinions with you. I appreciate every single one of you that listens and subscribes and just is a part of the Movie Nerd family. So with that being said, let's go ahead and jump into the remainder of my experiences at Fan Expo Denver, and then we can move on to some other stuff in future episodes. So Fan Expo Denver this year, I did, like I mentioned in the last episode, I did meet quite a few celebrities, and again, like I said earlier, I was going to split this up. There just isn't enough time for me to do that. So Charlie Cox, Vincent D'Onofrio, I would say I don't really have too much to talk about or go over about them. Vincent D'Onofrio and I did not really have any conversation, and Charlie Cox I feel like was pretty similar. He was friendly, but again, not really much as far as additional to just like paying for an autograph and receiving an autograph. Now, as far as like the second day that I was there, this is when I met like the majority of everyone. And I have to say, at the end of the day of day number 1, I ended up walking out of the venue and getting to meet Chad Lindberg. And some of you may remember Chad Lindberg because he was in the first Fast and the Furious film, but he was also in quite a few other things. He was in The Rookie, October Sky. I really enjoy him, and I think that he was so much fun to get to meet. He works alongside or with, I'm not entirely sure, this company called Mods and Bods, and they have sort of like a movie museum, I guess, but it's like a car museum. So it's a whole bunch of cars from films that you can go into this sort of museum and take a look at. And he was there with one of the Jettas that he drove in the movie Fast and the Furious. And I got to chat with him. I think his mom was also there. She's very lovely and very nice. And I also saw Chad on the morning of day 2. I was waiting in line to like get into the venue. He came up the escalator to go in with his mom, and I happened to make a comment to him about like, oh, they let you in here? And of course he had to stop and like say hello. He remembered my name. It was amazing because for the majority of it, I never expect any celebrities to remember meeting me. I just don't. It's not like a self-deprecating, like I'm not worth remembering kind of thing. But at Fan Expos, we're talking, thousands upon thousands of people that they meet each day pretty much. And I just don't expect them after meeting, a couple thousand people to remember specifically meeting one person, right? And I don't know if celebrities, meet specific people more than once, if there are like people that like follow them through Fan Expos. I think that is something that does happen, in which case they do remember those people. But I do not have like the financial ability to just travel around the country, following certain celebrities at Fan Expos. Unfortunately, I would totally do it. I would love to like podcast and travel and meet a whole bunch of different people. I think that'd be pretty cool. But unfortunately, for the time being, not capable of doing that. So Chad, I thought, was really lovely. I would love to meet him again. I did talk to him about being on the podcast. I don't know, again, if that will go anywhere or anything of that nature, but I enjoyed him. If you ever get the chance to meet him, I would hop on that for sure. He's very down to earth, and I think very like personable. So it's not really, Chad, I would say, is probably one of the people that didn't feel so much like meeting a celebrity. It's just sort of, he feels like meeting a friend, right? Like if you're going to meet a friend and talk about cars, that's kind of what it reminds me of. Like he's just very regular. And I don't mean that in a bad way. I mean that in a very good way, because he's approachable. Maybe that's a better way of phrasing it, is that he's very approachable and very kind and very personable. And I think that he very much so enjoys interacting with his fans and talking with them. And I think that is not something that you find every day. So I definitely loved him. Around the same sort of aspect, Danny Trejo, I think he is very similar to Chad Lidberg. He's very nice. I had him sign a photograph from The Mandalorian, which I don't like the television show, but I liked his character in it. And there is a specific sort of photograph from The Mandalorian where he's like, I think it's like a promo photo where he's like standing, in the desert or whatever, and he has like his weapons and stuff on. And I super just love the way he looks, because he's just a badass. He plays machete and all of that kind of stuff. And he's just so much fun. He has like a taco joint, and he had like some of his stuff from the taco place, like t-shirts and things that you could buy there, which I thought was really cool. So he was also very nice. Now, as far as anyone else goes, I'm trying to think if I'm forgetting anyone. I don't think so. So with that being said, I think we can launch into kind of the people that I considered the piece de resistance of meeting at Fan Expo, and subsequently became the two experiences that I feel like really sort of changed my experience as far as the way that I approach like expos, like Fan Expo, where there are celebrities. And I'm of two minds about a lot of this stuff. So I would love to know your guys' like feelings on some of these things that I talk about, if you are familiar with like Comic-Cons and expos and things like that, and if you've had any sort of similar experiences. So when Fan Expo was announced, obviously I go as often as I can. I go every year if I'm able to. This year, again, like I mentioned in the previous video, I was able to save up enough to go as VIP, which I had not done in previous years. Just as a heads up, all of the stuff that we're about to launch into is going to be pretty ranty and probably kind of long. So be prepared, strap in. This is going to be a longer episode than what we normally do. So as soon as Fan Expo Denver announced that Hayden Christensen was going to be there, I about lost my mind. I have loved Hayden Christensen forever. He is very similar in age to me, so I sort of kind of grew up watching him. I like a lot of his films. Obviously, he's been in like the prequels of Star Wars, but again, I've done another video on him previous to this one of my favorite film of his, which is a film called Awake. I've enjoyed Jumper, Life as a House, I believe is another one that he is in. I really like him. So it was mostly my goal to go to Fan Expo Denver as VIP in order to meet Hayden Christensen. Now, Hayden Christensen, I did end up giving my card, and I don't anticipate that he will ever, ever, like any of the celebrities, I don't anticipate that they will ever listen to any of my podcast episodes. But in case they do, anything that I say really is not something that is against them in any way. And by them, I mean celebrities or what have you. I don't mean anything to be negative. This is just, again, my experience. So I am not, and Hayden, if you're listening, I'm so sorry. I did not know that Hayden Christensen was as famous as he is. And hear me out. I know that sounds really stupid. But again, I was probably 13, 14, 15, somewhere around there when the prequels started to come out. And of course, then I got to sort of see Hayden Christensen in the prequels, which subsequently was the first time I ever got to see Star Wars in the theaters as well. When I was that age and the prequels came out, I remember really mostly just hearing a lot of hate towards him. People thinking that he was a terrible actor, people not liking his portrayal of Anakin, people not wanting him to be associated with Darth Vader. And so I kind of just, anyone who is like in their 40s at this point, 30s, 40s, 50s, you will understand that your brain kind of just gets locked like in your 20s and you stop, if somebody says to me, 30 years ago, I go, yeah, 1970, got it. Like, I don't realize that is incorrect. Like, your brain just sort of freezes at a certain point. So in my mind, I just froze in that space of, you enjoy him because you like a lot of his other films and stuff and you enjoy him as an actor, but most people don't enjoy him and don't think that he's a good actor. So it did not occur to me that he was like, oh my gosh, we're like so famous, and I've never gone to a fan expo or a Comic-Con or anything of that nature where there was a celebrity of, I guess, his caliber. So I wasn't used to the pandemonium, I guess, that comes along with celebrities on that level. And something else that I also just had not had any experience with was that Hayden Christensen had tiered levels for his like autographs, right? So the photos, if you wanted like a photo op with him, was just one standard price, like whatever price he set for it. But as far as the autographs, there were 3 different sort of levels of autographs, if you will. So like an 8x10 was a certain number of dollars. And then if you wanted like a poster signed, it was a different amount. And then if you wanted like a bulk item, like a helmet or a lightsaber or something of that nature, that was higher. So I figured the best possible thing to do, because going to the expo, I did not have anything specifically that I was going to be taking with me to have him sign. I thought, well, I will wait until the expo, purchase something at the expo on Friday, get him to sign it on Saturday. We're golden. Couple of days before the expo, when I went to like activate my badge, all of his autographs were sold out. Like completely sold out. And this is where I started to kind of realize like, well, shit. Like the one person that I was the most excited about seeing, I might potentially not get to see at all because I didn't realize how famous he was. My own sort of dumb brain might have cost me the experience of like getting to talk to him, I did end up scoring a photo op, which I went to, and even for VIP, the photo op to see him was probably about an hour. I think I was standing in line for about an hour. as VIP. And I know for sure that I talked to a couple of other people that had been in the same line who were in the line, depending on when their tickets were, for 4 hours. Now, I thought that was a bit ridiculous until getting to his sort of after hours-ish event. So his panel was extra. It's something that Fan Expo does now that previous conventions have not done, is with sort of higher celebrities, they will do their panel as an extra thing. So you have to buy like an extra ticket. It's not included with your ticket into the expo or anything like that. And Hayden's was an extra ticket that was not going to start until like 7:30 at night, I believe. And so going to that, it actually ended up starting at 8:30, so an hour later, because, and here's what kind of flabbergasted me, Hayden wanted to take about an hour between signing autographs and doing the panel in order to eat and just sort of take a break for a minute. And in my mind, I went, wait, what? It had not occurred to me. And again, I was not like sitting next to Hayden Christensen all day or anything of that nature. So I don't know what his day like personally looked like. But as far as I can tell, that man was there probably from 9 a.m. until like 9 p.m. And I don't know that he got a break at all until like 7 or 7:30 before his panel. Because as far as I am aware, he was signing autographs before I went up for the photo op. I know the photo op itself, to get through all the people that had paid for that, was at least 4 or 5 hours. And then he went right back to signing autographs before the panel. And now I don't know if he took like additional breaks when he was signing autographs or anything of that nature. But I know when you take breaks at table, that those breaks typically are shorter. You know, you can break to go to lunch or something like that, but you're not getting, you know, like a standard hour lunch or something the way that you would at a 9 to 5. Now, I will say, to pay for like the photo op, I probably got to be in front of him for, I don't know, less than a minute would be my guess. I was able to like hand him one of my business cards and tell him, you know, I host a podcast. I've done an episode about you. I'd love for you to check it out, right? I knew that because I only had a photo op, I wasn't going to be able to like ask him to be on the podcast. And I'm not sure that that was something that he would ever have been interested in doing anyway. But I feel like I ended up feeling so terrible about kind of being a part of this. I hesitate to use the word like mob, because I don't want to put myself in like a mob, because I don't approach him that way. Like, I don't think of him as like, oh, he's a celebrity, like this is what he should do. You know, he owes me his time and what, because I don't agree with that at all. And I know that there are some people that are like, well, he's getting paid to be there. He's a celebrity. He's making a ton of money. You know, I don't really care how long he has to stand there. And I get that. But like, I do. I don't know. Especially because right after I did my photo op with Hayden, I went back upstairs to see Sam Raimi. And Sam Raimi is one of my all-time favorite directors. He's done like Evil Dead. He did this movie called Darkman, which I really enjoyed. It was sort of like, I guess like the early, maybe mid 80s version of like a superhero movie, but like not a superhero movie, because they weren't allowed to like use a lot of the stuff from the original character that he was wanting to make a movie about. So he made kind of his own and titled it Darkman. But he also did direct the movie 65 with Adam Driver, which I loved and I feel like everyone else hated, but that's fine. But anyway, I love Sam Raimi. And so when I went down to get his autograph, I happened to be standing in line with a whole bunch of people, you know, that had probably been waiting there a lot longer than I had, because as VIP, you can kind of just walk up and enter the line sort of at the front, right? Which Whether or not you believe that that's fair, I don't know. But there were some people in the Sam Raimi line that were like, oh, this is just the rich staying rich. And I was like, but I did VIP and I'm not rich. So I don't know. I don't know how that works. But anyway, I knew that they had been waiting in line for a while when I made it down to the line for Sam Raimi. I'd bought my ticket kind of prior to going to see Hayden and came back down. And pretty much right when I got there to get Sam Raimi's autograph, I don't know if it was his assistant or his manager, but it was a man in like a very nice suit. I think Sam Raimi was also the only person that I've ever seen like show up to an expo dressed like really nice. Like most of the celebrities, I think because they know what they're going to be doing there all day, show up in like jeans and a t-shirt or something, the equivalent, right? Just like comfy clothes because you're probably going to just be standing for a while. But Sam Raimi came in like a suit, and not like a suit that you would wear to like a fancy dinner or something, but it was more like a casual suit. I am not very familiar with men's clothing, but it sort of seemed like something that was still nice, but would also potentially be comfortable. So not like a constricting sort of suit, but just like a nice looking casual suit. Anyway, his manager or assistant, also wearing a suit, came over and announced to us, like, I'm really sorry. Sam wants to take a break to have something to eat really quick. We will be back at 3:15. And I remember looking kind of at my phone to see what time it was and seeing that it was 3:08. And in my mind, I was like, the math is not mathing, right? Like, how can you possibly go take a break and come back at 3:15? So I reached out and kind of just touched the manager's shoulder. And I was like, I'm sorry, I think you're incorrect. And he goes, what? And I said, well, it's 3:08. You said he'll be back at 3:15. You can't even leave this area and come back in that time. Surely he needs more time than that to eat something. And he goes, oh my gosh, thanks so much for pointing that out. I didn't realize what time it was. I thought it was still before 3. And he goes, okay, change in plans. We're probably going to be back closer to 3:20 or 3:30. And then he walks away and Sam Raimi, of course, gets up and leaves. Immediately after, the people that were standing around me, just the exasperated sighs and the ugh and all of that kind of stuff, right? And they were like, why did you say that? He's never going to come back on time and you should have held them to stick to the 3:15. And I was just like, wait, what? And they were like, well, he's a celebrity, right? He can have someone just bring him food to the table. And I remember just kind of being like, excuse you? That's slave labor the last time I checked. I can't imagine, celebrity or not, I don't care if they make millions of dollars. If you are there for 10 plus hours during the day, signing your own name over and over and over again to people who sometimes are very grateful, but sometimes are not at all. I can imagine that can get exhausting. The least that they deserve is 15 minutes to sit down and have a sandwich, go to the bathroom. I don't know where people get this kind of mentality, because it's in my job, if my employer said to me, you can't have 15 minutes to take a break and go to the bathroom, you have to just be here your entire 8-hour shift. Is that a job that you would keep? No, it's not. And granted, yes, they get paid millions of dollars. I am sure that Sam Raimi made a ton of money from autographs and photo ops at the Fan Expo. I am certain that every celebrity makes some decent money at those conventions, or they probably wouldn't do them, right? Because they're traveling a ton. Hayden Christensen, just specifically, I think, had not only been overseas, because I do remember seeing some video of him at an expo in the UK, but then he also was at 4 expos before Denver. So before my expo where I got to see him, he was at 4 other additional expos. And that's just the ones that I know about. That's not all of the ones that he probably signed up for. So we're talking like he's taking months of his time really to travel around to meet his fans and stuff, which I do not personally take lightly, right? You know, people like Sam Raimi, people like Hayden Christensen, Vincent D'Onofrio, all of these people are taking time out of their personal lives in order to kind of come and hang out with their fans and like sign autographs and all that stuff. And granted, it is a job. They are getting paid to do that, but they don't have to. There is nothing anywhere that says that celebrities have to do expos or have to give autographs. And I know that there is a lot of controversy around that. And a lot of people who have this mentality of, well, don't choose to be famous then, right? If you're famous, you are agreeing to give up your privacy and your personhood in order for your fans who, quote unquote, put you where you are. You have to like cater to them all the time. And I don't agree with that. Acting is a job. Granted, yes, they are making quite a bit more money than the average person. Yes, they live in most cases much more, luxurious lives than you or I or, regular, person working a 9-to-5 job. But at the end of the day, Hayden Christensen, Sam Raimi, all of these people are human beings, right? They're still people and they still have the same basic human needs of everyone else, going to the bathroom and having a sandwich and relaxing for a minute to take a break, especially considering that I am sure not every interaction that they have with someone they categorize as a positive one, like in the previous Fan Expo episode that I did, I talked about how I wasn't sure if my experience with Matthew Lillard was something that had offended him, right? So imagine that's just one. That's just one experience that for Matthew might not have been positive. There might have been people that were openly aggressive with him or had the intention to do that. I have no idea if, Sam Raimi had any experiences like that, or if Hayden did, from people that were frustrated and annoyed at having to wait in long lines. And I get it, I get just as annoyed having to wait in the lines at the Comic-Cons and expos. It's tough to spend an entire day basically waiting in line to meet someone that you respect a lot. But I still kind of have a lot of respect for them. I love what they do. It's definitely changed my experience and my life, and a lot of the joy that I get from writing and all of that stuff comes from, movies that I watched when I was a kid and loving that storytelling, and then getting into reading a ton and getting into that kind of storytelling. And, so I guess I kind of look at it a little bit differently in that now that I approach it, and especially having a podcast where at some point I would love to have, professional relationships with some of these celebrities and have them on the podcast and have, good conversations and stuff with them, that I approach it in a new way. And I kind of look at it a lot different than I used to when I was quote unquote just a fan, right? Because I didn't necessarily, and I am guilty of this for sure, in previous years, I never really stopped to think about what their day must look like because I was so all consumed with what my day looked like, how annoying it was to wait in line, or how annoying it was to not, be able to get something to eat very quickly, or, how many people were around. And I get overwhelmed, very easily in large crowds and things of that nature. But I imagine so do they, I know quite a few celebrities that are more introverts. Just speaking of Oppenheimer, for instance, Cillian Murphy is definitely more of an introvert. He doesn't like people in his personal life and in his personal space. And so I just kind of picture it from my perspective of how difficult it would be for me to like swap places with them. And I do at one point really, really hope that the podcast makes it to a point where I can like get a booth at a Comic-Con and be able to like meet people who listen. And I would very much enjoy doing that. But I have to imagine that it has its own disadvantages, right? That we kind of should be more aware of as far as celebrities are concerned. And one of the things that I always try and do, whether I fail at this or not, in some instances, but one thing that is incredibly important for me to do is every single time that I meet a celebrity, you know, like with Hayden or with Sam Raimi, I think the first thing I said to Hayden was like, hello, how are you? How's your day? You know, I host this podcast. Like I always try and start that way, right? It's not like, hey, you know, sign this thing for me or whatever. It's always like, hey, I really enjoy your work. How's your day? You know, how is it going? I try to be friendly and come in sort of that positive energy because I don't know if the person before me or after me is going to do the same. So that is really like what I would put out into the universe is any movie nerd that is out there and listening and goes to like expos or Comic-Cons, just kind of maybe be a little bit more aware of like their experience as well and celebrity experiences as well. I know a lot of them really enjoy doing conventions. And so I'm not saying at all that any of the people that I met this year had bad experiences or like hated what they're doing or anything of that nature. But I think it would just go a long way with just having better experiences in general with actors and actresses if you approach it in like in a positive way. Not saying that any of you don't, but just like, let's lead with that, right? Let's all be good movie nerds and like try and be as positive and kind as possible to the people that we get so much enjoyment from in terms of films and things. And especially with like the strike going on now with like the actors union strike and the writers strike as well, that, you know, content and film and television might be delayed a little bit. And if that, you know, makes you sad, then perhaps just think about supporting actors and writers in whatever way that looks like to you. So those are my thoughts and kind of my final wrap up on Fan Expo Denver. I would love to know your thoughts or your experiences if you happen to go to comic conventions as well. Subscribe if you want to join the Movie Nerd family, and I hope to see you in the next episode.
Thank you.